Tell me your earliest memory.
My earliest memory. I have a memory from being maybe 3, 4 years old and lying in my bed, about to go to sleep. And I had this very unusual sensation. It felt like the walls were very, very close to me. Like, not even an inch away from my face. Like, touching me in every way. Almost touching me. And with every movement that I would make, they would shift. And I just remember being aware of the feeling, not sure what it was. And sometimes I would get the same sensation when I would start to go into a meditative state over the years. It wasn't until I was in hypnotherapy when I was an adult, I was maybe like 21, 22. I had a hypnotherapist ask me, what is the earliest memory that you have of feeling safe? And I was describing this memory to her. And it wasn't until after the hypnosis that I actually realized that this memory that I had and this sensation that I had repeatedly felt my whole life was a memory of being in the womb, that the walls were my mother's womb. The fact that everything was so receptive of my movements was the water that surrounded me, and I just knew that I had this memory stored in my body of being in the womb. So yeah, that's my earliest memory.
Hey guys, so I just wanted to share my first memory, and I really fought hard to remember this memory when I was a kid because I thought it was so cool to remember something so early in life. So I remember like just being a toddler and taking a bath in the sink, and I can't believe I actually fit into one of those things. Like, now my head is about the size of that, you know. Let that sink in. That's what I would say. Anyway, yeah, I was like, I need to remember this so hard as a little kid, and I did. I still remember it. So that's my.
When I was a little boy, the earliest memory I have is of my brother putting me on the washing machine and going, yabba dabba doo, and he'd bump me in the forehead over and over.
I have two first memories. I can't remember what came first, but one of them was crawling up a set of stairs that had pink carpets. I was just a little baby. And the second one is me crawling underneath a stove and getting my finger trapped in a mouse trap.
One of my earliest memories was from, I think I was around 2, and I was outside of my parents' apartment complex in West Orange, and there was this little field, and there was all these dandelions, and I remember chasing after our cat named BB, and then I was laughing and talking about the bees, because there was all these bumblebees, and I was just like, bee, 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 I don't know. And then I ran over and picked up one of the bees, and it stung me, and I was like screaming and crying, and my dad's like, drop it, and I'm like, ah, and then he had to come over and like kind of smack my hand, and I dropped it. And then I also remember going into the kitchen, and my mom gave me ice, but then I ate it, and I kept on crying a few times. She's like, no, don't eat it, just keep it in your hand to make it cold. And then they told me, don't pick up the bees.
My earliest memory is when I was a little kid, probably about 2 or 3 years old. I was going camping with my mom and dad, and my dad somewhere stopped along the side of the road, and he asked me, which of the 2 hills do you want to go camping at? I don't know why he asked this in the first place, but just, I don't know, starting conversation maybe. One of them was very kind of like dry brush, grass, and maybe even burnt, seeming not green at all. And then another one was very green and normal. And I picked the dry one because it looked fuzzy. and I could see like kind of a somewhat of like a disappointment in my dad's face, or at least kind of just like oh, okay, kind of thing. And then the next thing I remember is also from that same camping trip where we're cooking hot dogs on a fire, and my 3-year-old brain is looking at the ashes in the fire and for some reason decided that it looked like dirt. Dirt and ashes looked similar. So for some reason I decided I'm going to grab some dirt and throw it down on the fire where there's hot dogs or like on top of a wire thing or whatever. Got dirt all over the hot dogs. My dad got mad and yelled at me, and that was for some reason memorable enough.
Notable third memory is falling into a lake and seeing this like psychedelic scene underwater, and my mom pulled me up by my hair, and the first thing that I said was that I wanted a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And underwater, like, I was only 5, and it just looked like this rainbow psychedelic scene.
I think my earliest memory has to be when I was probably maybe 3, maybe 4, something in there. And all I kind of do remember is vaguely going to go to a beach house with my parents when I was little, and it was a giant thunderstorm happening. And I remember my parents were pretty young, so it was kind of remember being like a little bit of a party with my uncles and aunts, and then I remember there being a thunderstorm and watching that, and the power going out and that whole thing. And I think that's my earliest one. Other than that, my first like really concrete memory is I broke my arm during a playtime accident when I was around 4 or 5-ish, I think. And from that point on, my memory is pretty consistent.
So one of my earliest childhood memories was living at home. Of course, I was a baby, and I was at the babysitter's, and we were watching James and a Giant Peach, which gave me nightmares because of the rhino storm. I was just like, whoa, that shit's scary. And the skeletons. That was a scary movie. Anyway, I was watching that, and then I snuck off from my brothers and the babysitter, and I had a penny, and I had a bad habit of eating random things. And I ate this penny because I liked the taste of it, and then I choked on it. And then, the babysitter was all like, oh my God. And then my mom finally came and she's like, why did you do that? And I was like, I like the taste of it. And then after that, my mom says that she had to look through my shit for a few days to find it. And she did find it. But that was one of my earliest childhood memories, choking on a penny.
My earliest memory was receiving a little hand-painted box that my grandmother had given me with some sea urchins inside. And as I was recalling this memory, I remembered that I actually have that little box with me right here. And if you open it, it has my name and the date, which is 1983. And I was born in 1982. So does that mean I remember something from when I was 1 year old? That's my earliest memory.
My earliest memory was when I was about 6 months to a year old. I was laying in my crib, and I was realizing that when I squinted my eyes, it distorted the light, like it split the image. And I remember whether I was like falling in and out of sleep, but there was a wooden trolley model that my grandfather had made because he had lost his leg, and he was like making all sorts of like models because he wasn't working, didn't know what to do this time anymore. But I remember that shelf, and I remember being as young as I was because I was in my crib still, and just, I should remember something like that from that long ago. But
my earliest memory is being at the water's edge, and I'm in a diaper, so it's pretty early memory. I just remember playing around with the sand and the rocks, and it being a really warm, sunny day, and I was just very happy. And as I said, I was in a diaper. I remember that. so it must be an early, very early memory. We used to spend summers I think we lived in kind of a congested area, and with 5 kids, my parents liked to take at least a 2-week vacation in close, but a place that we could rent to, get out and be in a higher, cooler elevation. And that's it. I remember just loving being outdoors and by the water. The water was always a fascination to me and beautiful, and it was a lake teeming with wildlife and things of interest to little babies, to little kids, and I loved it. I think that's the earliest memory. I've, of course, been told things that are memories of my siblings, but
my earliest
that's mine.
memories are a series of memories, and they date starting around 1954. The earliest one is of myself and my brother and sister marching around the dining room table to the tune of Davy Crockett, King of the Wild Frontier. And I had a coonskin cap and a little pop gun, I think, and we would march around in a circle and to this 78 record, and we did that a lot. And that was in the old apartment where we stayed for a few years before my father built a house up in Upper Saddle River, New Jersey. The next memory after that really stuck with me was when I was about 4 years old. I built a tree fort, and that consisted of me learning how to pound a nail, and I practiced on some old boards, and my father had built this house, so there was plenty of building materials around, scraps of lumber and things like that, and then taking little pieces of wood down into the woods there, and being able to put the nails through the board and into the tree to make some steps up the tree. And this took about a week because I was I was only 4 and couldn't swing a hammer, and it was a learning process, but gradually the steps, I got one step in after a day or so, and then another and another and another, and up the tree I went. And then I had to drag these boards up, and my tree fort consisted of 2 boards on a forked limb, and I was happy as a clam up there, just sitting there looking up into the trees and listening to the birds, and I was out in the woods. So those are my earliest memories that I'd like to share.
So my earliest memory, I think, is being in this little like bouncy plane. So like this like little, if you can imagine those like red plastic cars with the yellow roofs that used to be everywhere. It's kind of like a version of that, but blue and an airplane. And it mounted inside a doorway. And I think it was the door from my parents' dining room looking into the kitchen, facing into the kitchen. And I was freaking loving bouncing. And my mother was at the other side of the room, and I would assume she was cooking something if she was in there. And I was bouncing my freaking heart out. And I think that's a good thing. So anyway, yeah, that's it.
My first memory is running down the hallway afraid of King Triton when he got mad at Ariel and the Little Mermaid.